ice skating pervert.
First, some background. I'm an ice hockey player and I go skating on Friday nights for fun. I'm 5'5", 16, female, and not very intimidating to those taller than me. To begin, it was another Friday night. I get home, get ready, and then head out to the bus stop. Upon arriving, I noticed the crowd at the arena was a lot larger than usual. This is strange because Friday nights are usually for the more experienced because the disco lights make it harder to see. Amongst the crowd, I see a tall guy, I'd say around 23, holding a pair of hockey skates. He seemed to be flirting with 3 girls in the line. I didn't take much more interest and proceeded to pay for my sessions and joined the line. Heading in, I instantly go to the lockers and begin putting my things inside. He walks past me and sits down on a bench a couple centimeters away. He's talking to friends of mine, my age too, and I begin eavesdropping. He was telling them how fit they were and how he would. I looked at him and glared. He laughed and said, "What?" in the most childish voice you could imagine. About a half hour later, everyone's on the ice, skating, dancing. Everyone seems to be having a great time, until I feel a hand on my shoulder. It was my friend, we'll call her Rachel, and she looked horrified. She went on to tell me that he'd been touching her butt and he tried taking her glasses off and kept telling her to "come here, baby." I was furious that he thought that was acceptable. Rachel told me she'd be fine and we carried on skating around in the clockwise system they had. Forward to the second session. By now, all my friends had arrived. Everyone's blood was pumping and it was beginning to be the best night ever. But you guessed it, Big Boy is chasing after my friends again, and I wasn't having it. I sped up and met his pace. He looked down at me and smiled. I glared and told him he was out of order. He laughed and told me to shut up. I screamed and told him he was disgusting and that he was pathetic. He skated off and I couldn't follow as I had tired myself out from shouting. My other friends, who were guys, came over and they got me to explain what had happened. They'd been watching off the ice at the side and skated on as soon as he'd left. They're all between 5'10" and 6'4", so I felt safe. They skated around with us for a while and I practically forgot the whole thing. Skating finished and my 2 friends and I, we'll call them Alice and Kira, were walking back to Alice's house. We were giggling and talking about some of the lads we were there with as teenagers do. But Kira noticed something. Every corner we turned or changed in pace, a guy behind us copied. Further investigation of the stranger showed it was the guy from before. I kept cool and said that he was a harmless creep and that we should keep walking. Alice got worried as we were close by her house and she didn't want him to know where she lived. We took a left back into town, and he followed. We took an alley that led back to the path which led to her house. He followed. Then we ran. Alice ahead with her keys, me in the middle and Kira behind panicking. He hadn't realized until he was too far behind to catch up. We got to Alice's and we calmed down, ordered some pizza and talked about it all. I'd never seen him there before. I'd never been so afraid to be on the ice. I'd hate to think what would have happened if we hadn't ran, or whether he'll be there again. So, creepy ice skater, let's not meet again.
Help me find my dog.
This all took place when I was around 8 or 9. I lived in one of the more poor neighborhoods of Las Vegas and had always been taught the dangers of adults with bad intentions. I had a best friend at the time, Gavin, who apparently had not been taught the same as me. Every single day, Gavin and I would walk home from the school, the 3 blocks from the elementary school down to his house, and then finally mine at the end of the street. We had been doing this for the better half of the school year without incidents. However, all it took was one singular moment for that to change. Gavin and I were making our regular trek from school towards Gavin's house, making jokes and exploring what we were going to do that day. It was usually watching Pokemon and reenacting our favorite scenes from the most recent episode. As we turned onto a street, a beat-up old red truck stopped on the road, and a ratty-looking older man with a salt and pepper beard and bloodshot eyes stuck his head out of the grimy-looking vehicle and immediately leaned towards Gavin and I, and in a sickly innocent voice, filled to the brim with worry, he asked us, "Would you two help me find my dog? I think she's just down the block. She likes to run off on me and I could really use your help." I was skeptical at best. I shook my head and explained that I really had to get home and that my mother was waiting for me. But Gavin promptly said yes and ran towards the truck without a second's hesitation. I was frozen in place, my frame icing over in a cold fear and suspicion. The truck took off and I was left on the side of the road cursing Gavin and wondering what the hell I was going to do now. As a child, I didn't realize that moment could have been the last I would ever see of my best friend. A dozen thoughts ran through my mind of whether to get Gavin's mother or my own, but at the moment, the very real thought that he was attempting to kidnap us wasn't on my mind. All I knew was that he gave me a very bad vibe and I was to never go off with strangers. I had only made it a couple more steps down the road before the unmistakable clunking of the man's red truck hissed up behind me. I froze in fear before it quickly took off, speeding away and leaving Gavin in its mists. I was so relieved. I turned and saw my friend clutching $1 to his chest and running towards me, showing off his new reward. I asked him if they'd found the dog and Gavin said no, that they drove around the block and he was given the $1 and dropped back off on our street. We never told our parents and I never saw the man again, but it wasn't until years later that I realized that the only reason that man let Gavin go was because I didn't go. And out there, an 8-year-old girl would know what this man looked like and what car he drove if Gavin never came back. So, creepy fake dog owner in the red truck, let's not meet ever again.